top was most like dealing with genre, and now we've looked at the concern level down in the types of concerns that most impact plot. Now we get down to the theme of themes, as it were, the variations on the themes, the specific items, issues, topics that deal with what the theme centers on, the heart of the thematic issue in each of the 4 through lines. We'll begin by looking at the objective story through line again and saying, what does the thematic issue in the objective story feel like? Why is it one that concerns everyone? And here we'll be looking at Network, the movie Network, the objective story issue. By the way, issue used to be called range because we had domains and ranges. It sounded very mathematical. But people, writers, were more interested in dealing with the problems of the story, and it was easier to identify by saying we have a domain, a concern within that domain, an issue within that concern, and then the problem within that issue. So now the terminology has been changed to the thematic issue. And in Network, it's self-interest. Everyone's concerned with what's best for them, even though often, as in this clip, they seem to be talking about what's best for everyone else. Self-interest is really the issue. Alright, so all the time he's talking about what this giant corporation in the world of corporations and the brotherhood of businesses is going to do for every individual who will own a share of stock, who will be a participant, who will have all their needs looked after, when in fact all they want is absolute control and as much power and money as they can have. So disguised as a speech about doing things for the masses is the truth of the matter, cleverly story told, that the thematic issue here is really about self-interest. And because it's the objective story concern, sorry, the subjective, okay, because it's the objective story's issue, all of the people in the story, all of the characters involved are dealing with issues of self-interest. They are different kinds of self-interest, but just like an overall concern, everyone shares a similar concern, although the specifics might be different in the plot. When it comes to value standards, the moral of the story, the message of the story, everyone's dealing with issues pertaining to the topic of self-interest. Now let's take a look a little farther down. An objective story issue deals with all people. That's where you shout your theme. You shout your theme with the objective story issue. You whisper your theme, as it were, with the main character issue. Now, by whispering doesn't mean it can't be loud, it just means it's very personal, like whispering in someone's ear. Here's a very loud main character theme from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and the theme that only the main character is interested, the thematic issue that only the main character is exploring, has to do with truth. Okay, so you can see that lots of people could be involved in the main character issue just because it's the main character's thematic issue, thematic value standard that they explore. No, that doesn't mean that only they have to be the only ones involved in looking at it, but others just don't care about it. It's only brought up because it's this guy's particular issue. He brings it up, and everyone else then responds. It's when everyone else is bringing it up or talking about it, pro or con, that it's an objective story issue. Now let's look down a little farther from that. Let's look at an obstacle character issue. Obstacle character doesn't have to be a good guy, again, doesn't have to be right, and doesn't even have to be a good guy to be right. For example, Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal Lecter is the obstacle character to Clarice Starling. Hannibal Lecter is the one who's telling her what she needs to do. Look deeply in herself, see what's going on inside, let go of those screaming lambs, or she's going to be hurting inside for the rest of her life. And even though he's a terrible villain, he's telling her the right thing she needs to do. But when it comes to the thematic issue, the area in which he wishes to talk, the outlook he says is best, the one he wants others to adopt, here is someone who's dealing with thought. He tries to get Clarice Starling to think. And all through the story, he's always working at her as her obstacle, as that alternative person she might become, saying, if you think more, you'll be like me, and you'll be able to solve your problem. He certainly doesn't carry any angst, does he? Here we've seen that he's trying to get her to think, and he does all the way through. That's his thematic issue as the obstacle character. That's what she's looking at perhaps adopting, taking on this approach where you think about things. That's the way to approach the problem. However, an interesting thing occurs with Silence of the Lambs. We have an opportunity to see very clearly how different kinds of thematics can work together. Each through line has its own thematic issue, just like it has its own domain and concern. Underneath it, each has its own thematic issue. Thematic issue, of course, we looked at network, we saw that it was self-interest. Everybody dealt with self-interest. Then we saw Mr. Smith, only he's concerned with the truth. Now we've seen the obstacle character is trying to have impact, which is what an obstacle character does, on Clarice Starling in The Silence of the Lambs, dealing with thought, make her think. But between them and Silence of the Lambs, what a nice comparison, they seesaw around an issue between them, a thematic issue of confidence. Confidence. That's the subject matter that describes the thematic spin of the relationship between them. Let's take a look at how they seesaw back and forth over confidence, even while he's trying to get her to think. And over the course of the story, they'll go back and forth between the two of them, seesawing or pivoting around the thematic issue of confidence. It's the game they play. It's how they explore who is more powerful in their paradigm, their overall paradigm. It's how the main character, Clarice, determines whether she's going to look at the world the way Dr. Lecter says she should, just like an obstacle character says, get off the path you're on, change course, or if she's going to bull on through and show him that he's not powerful enough to do that, his belief system isn't enough to change her, and she'll keep on holding. And in the end, she does keep on holding on to those lambs. She doesn't adopt it, and that's actually to her detriment, even though he's the villain.